As a mark of the seriousness it brings to the question of air safety, British Airways publishes a report every 2 months that covers all incidents, however minor. But the publicity air safety gets elsewhere is of a different order. People in the aviation industry say that the coverage of air safety in the popular press is ludicrously distorted.
Subjects like safety and security used to come up every 5-10 years. Whenever there was an accident or an incident, it was looked at, it was reported a safety incident. Now it runs day in, day out. And there are certain national newspapers who are quite prepared to manufacture a story about a safety or security incident when it bears no relation to the facts. You take a 4-inch crack in an aircraft, you stick it onto the front of a popular newspaper, you use colour journalism, and you make that crack look big. Disaster, death jet in the air. That's absolute crap. Bears no relation to reality, but that is allowable, permissible in some of the standards we now see in journalism.
The press seized upon BA's discomfort when its new baby, the Boeing 747-400, was attacked as unsafe even before it was delivered. Separated from those strident headlines, the story was simply that European aviation authorities were insisting on still higher standards of construction.
We had a pretty rough press, not our fault, on 747-400's delays, safety problems, are Boeing up to standard or not? And the subject is very hot at the minute on safety, so I think we've got to address it tomorrow. What we're trying to do, and you've got to okay the budget yet, is to think of any PR means of exploiting the newness, the technological advance of the 747-400. Singapore, I think, are playing it up well at the minute. We can't take safety head on as a PR issue, or we will protest too much. The only thing we can do is to take something out of this vast investment we're making and try and exploit it in media terms.
The formula -1 or the index.
For an airline chief, a press conference that touches on air safety is like going to the dentist. A necessary but often painful encounter.
You've said many times that safety is paramount. If changes had to be made, some of the early ones would be flying with standards which are different from the subsequent aircraft until they could go back and be retrofitted. I know an aircraft is safe or it isn't.
I mean, let's stress there is nothing unsafe about the 747 aircraft, either those that are flying today nor the new one that is coming in.
There's a lot of wood touching goes on when safety is discussed. There are some carriers who've never had an accident, but they won't talk about it, because the moment they do, they think, well, if we start talking about this and promote it, and we have one, we're going to get in worse trouble than if we didn't say so. All sorts of things can cause accidents. Sadly, it's the human factor that causes most, and most of that is to do with pilot error. But they're still very few and far between, and when you consider the vast number of aircraft now flying and the huge number of passengers they're carrying, the loss rate is extremely low. But it is an issue that the airlines have to live with and contend with emergency procedures and contingency plans every day of their working lives.
And on this working day in Seattle, the test flight is nearly over.
Well, here we are, just towards the end of our customer one flight on this aeroplane.
Okay, landing gear. Landing gear, go down.
We found nothing of any concern at all. There's a few minor points, but not very many. We won't need to refly so that we can accept this aeroplane in 2 days.
Another 100 feet. Another 160 feet.
And a surface wind.
Too low gear. Too low gear.
Okay,
That's
let it
good.
go.
Gear down
That's
then.
it. Gear down then. Thanks very much.
And a surface wind as well, please.
RSA wind.
Wind 130 at 5.
The new 747's been pushed to the limit of its performance. But this final
Speed
test,
brake on.
landing,
Yes, it is.
will test the pilot more than the plane. Pilot error is responsible for 76% of all accidents.
100. 50. 30.
The right readout was reading 1,500 feet when we climbed way above that. They didn't have a spare unit on board, so all they did was trip the circuit breaker and it
cleared itself.
I don't think we have anything significant that's going to cause us to have any reservations at all.
There's nothing major there at all. I think basically it's a very good aircraft.
Okay, so we go and tell them that we'll make them an offer for it, John? Yeah. Well,
Right, well, that's about it.
down to the transfer of the funds.
Hello, John. Could you transfer the money now, please? Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
The money's been transferred, the delivery's complete, you've bought yourself an airplane. Here are the keys.
Another 8 of the same one.
Congratulations. you
Thanks
bought
very
yourself
much,
an
DK.
airplane.
A handshake completes a deal that has cost BA $135 million.
We have 2.5 minutes to airtime.
As BA buys itself a new plane in Seattle, in New York, on closed-circuit TV, Sir Colin Marshall sells the airline to American investors.
A question from New York City.
Yes, my question is, what UK and European competitors are likely to undergo the most change as a result of liberalization, and how do you see this affecting British Airways?
In terms of most change, I think one would have to look at the medium-sized airlines in Europe.
Give me a signal, Sir Colin.
Sir Colin draws attention to the European market, where what used to be a world of cosy deals between state-subsidized airlines is threatening to become a battlefront. By 1992, under common market rules, the airways in Europe will have gone the American way and become deregulated. A free market for air travellers will mean a free-for-all between the major flag carriers, with medium-sized newcomers and give-it-a-go small fry all competing for a piece of the action. But in the run-up to 92, the new boys are complaining that BA is throwing its weight around. Harry Goodman of Air Europe says they're not the great champions of free competition they claim to be.
They are the pioneers, so they say, and you pick up the press, of wanting deregulation in Europe, they're wanting access, they're wanting low fares. They've never produced a low fare in their history. The only time they ever want a low fare is if they find they've got 10,000 seats to sell in the next 10 days. But the major business customers have their fares put up every year, regularly at the same time as their competition. Very interesting.
Some fares could come down now, yes, if the constraints and restrictions that are imposed by certain of the governments on the continent of Europe were removed.
Most of Europe's major airlines are state-owned, which is one of the reasons why it's much more expensive to fly in Europe than it is in America. BA concede they could bring their fares down in Europe, but argue that their first aim is quality.
What's quality? Would you pay £100 extra to go to Paris for an ounce of caviar? Or an inch more seat room? Or a free newspaper? Would you or your wife go into a shop and pay that? For that? Is that quality? I doubt it.
Of course he's overstating his case, but it's a nice little catchy phrase that'll get press reporting. We set our prices on our quality and we'll compete in the marketplace. He can set his prices whatever level he wants and he can provide caviar or hamburgers, we don't mind, and we'll compete with him.
Although British Airways say they welcome the freedom 1992 will bring, they know it will strengthen Harry Goodman's airline, which has been astutely tailored for the new Europe. With 70 new planes on order, Air Europe is becoming a real threat to BA.